Welcome to Ask the Expert, your go-to series for practical insights on business and finance. I'm your host, Nicole Pride. So today we're just going to dive right into it. This is a good one, folks. We want to show you how to position yourself as an indispensable employee during times of internal change, restructuring, and organizational shifts. For many of us, our job is our primary source of income. So, knowing how to navigate these transitions is essential for staying secure and building financial freedom. So today I'm so excited to have with us Ayanna Doaman. She is an accomplished HR leader and has deep expertise in talent management, leadership development, and organizational design. She's guided countless professionals and teams to not just survive, but thrive in dynamic work environments. And what I love about Ayanna, she tells it like it is. So you are going to get the real deal on how to stay marketable. She's going to share key strategies for building crucial relationships in the workplace. And you get a bonus, folks. She's going to talk to you about tips on how to maximize the benefits your employers offer, helping you to grow financially and professionally. So let's get started. Welcome, Ayanna.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here today.
I'm excited to have you. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So let's just start with talking about mentors, advocates, sponsors. I many years ago attended an event with Michelle Thornton. She's the author of Strategic.
Yes, I love that book. I saw her speak as well.
So I think she was actually fascinating. And one of the tips that she shared was knowing the relationships that you have with your colleagues. So, just to be really quick about it, she was interviewing for a job. She gave her recommendations for referrals, that is, and she got the job. She found out after she was hired that the person she listed for a referral actually did not give her a good recommendation. And she mistaken the relationship, right? She said that what she thought was a mentor and advocate really was actually just a friendly, cordial relationship with a colleague, right? It was nothing more than just niceties between the two. And so help us understand what's the difference between a mentor, an advocate, and a sponsor so that we're all on the same page about these key critical relationships in the workplace?
Absolutely. Yeah. And the mentor, sponsor, or advocate are really important when you think about personal development. So, a sponsor is an individual who can make decisions on your behalf. This is the individual who can get you the job or the promotion. A mentor is typically an individual who has more experience and can give you guidance or advice about how you navigate your career. And then an advocate is really someone who is speaking on your behalf to really help you through your career and enhance your brand. This is the person that's in the room and able to speak on your value and your ability in the organization. So, when you think about opportunities to connect with these professionals, there's a couple of ways. Many organizations have formal leadership programs. And so you can take an opportunity to speak with your HR business partner or your
Mhm.
manager. Or if you have an online site, see what kind of leadership programs are out there and connect into a formal mentorship program. Or there could be an offering where you can identify those who are willing to be mentors. And
Mhm.
the same is true for sponsorship programs. But from experience, I have found that the best relationships are more organic in
Mhm.
terms of people really being willing to advocate for those they know. And to the example that you gave from Michelle Thornton, they know you and you know them. So you can be more confident that you're referring or connecting with someone who is speaking well on your behalf.
So I love that, right? Most companies have what I hear you saying that they have formal steps in which you can identify a partner with someone that can advocate for you or be a sponsor. And so people who may not realize this, they should just go to their HR office and ask about it. I know sometimes those programs may be they cherry pick folks for those pathways internally, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. So you can either go to your HR partner, or in those cases, your manager may know. And if the program does have specific eligibility or criteria, then someone would be able to share that. And in
Mm-hmm.
those cases where the programs are really based solely on manager recommendation,
Mm-hmm.
it may be that you really just need to have a conversation to find out. But oftentimes, I find that if you express interest in your development, you will learn a lot more about the opportunities that are available to support that development. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, if you're going to go into those conversations, thinking about having a mentor or a sponsor, you want to be prepared. So I can share some tips in terms of how you do so.
Yeah. And so is there a certain criteria someone should select other than having a personal relationship with them? Is there something like a character or position, title? What should you consider when you want to identify a mentor, a sponsor, or an advocate?
Typically, you think first about someone who demonstrates a leadership style that you admire or
Mm,
aspire to be.
okay.
So you would, in many cases, be working with someone or see them in a particular meeting and identify that they have been successful, they may have reached a certain level, and they
Mm-hmm.
are showing up in a way that demonstrates the strong leadership presence. They can communicate and articulate their thoughts well in front of executives. They are able to navigate the office dynamics in an effective way, meaning that they can build strong relationships with other people that they
Right.
influence. So it's typically that you've had an opportunity yourself to observe someone in a
Right.
meeting or through a series of projects and identify behaviors that you want to emulate, and you see that you can learn from them through that type of relationship.
Yeah, those are great points because what good would it do to have a sponsor or advocate who can't navigate office politics, who can't get along well with other colleagues and you know?
Right. We know those leaders, right? So you know it when you see it.
Right.
And oftentimes you can use that to say, I want to be, it's those individuals that you say, wow, I really want to be like that, or I really admire how he or she handles those particular dynamics. So you typically know when you want to identify someone who can help you.
Hmm. So, okay, let's just say now people have identified someone and they're ready to get started tomorrow. What advice would you give folks once they have that interview scheduled and they're going to meet face to face?
Yeah, it is so important just to be prepared. One, you want to be able to articulate your goals. What are
Hmm.
you interested in doing? What types of roles or positions do you see as a fit for yourself in your career? And what are your strengths and experiences that you think make you a valuable asset to the organization?
Hmm.
Two, come in with thoughts on questions that you might have for the leader. So you may want to learn a little bit more about their business or even about their personal journey to get to the role that they're in today, because you can learn strategies for yourself as you hear more about their experience. And
Hmm.
be comfortable to understand the personal nature of the individual as well. The executives are human just like we are, and to build effective connections and relationships, you often may go a little bit deeper into a personal level. So as
Hmm.
you're sharing your own introduction, model that. Share a little bit about yourself. You may share something about your family dynamic or hobbies or volunteer work that you do, because that can also be a way of building a rapport.
Yeah, those are great tips. And one thing I did not hear was to use this as an opportunity to talk about complaints, to talk about your gripes, to talk about how you were just how you were passed over for a position or, just using that to complain.
That's right, Nicole. I mean, this is really an opportunity for you to market yourself. This is your elevator pitch, if you will. So, you want to go up and show up as your best self and not be remembered as someone who is unhappy in the organization. As you're
Mm,
meeting with the leader, they're also assessing if you would be someone who has the future potential to add value to the organization. And if they're going to
mm,
be your sponsor or mentor, they also want to know who they're putting their name behind. So this is your opportunity to really show your best self in that
mhm,
conversation.
mhm. One question I have for you, if someone is sharing their goals and vision for their role within the organization, does it matter if the goals that they have are for positions that don't exist? Is that an opportunity to kind of carve out a new path for you?
That's a good question. I think in those cases, it is fine if you have a vision about things that are not in place today. That can show innovation in your thinking
Mhm.
and that you have more of a forward thinking mindset about what's possible in the organization. And in many cases, even if something does not exist today, that leader can help you think about how do you navigate. If you're going to be creating a position, then you likely have to show value for that position. So I would just be prepared in that case if you're talking about something that doesn't exist today to show and communicate the why that would be a benefit for the organization. At the end of
Right,
the day, companies are very bottom line focused. So if
right.
you're going to promote yourself for something that doesn't exist, why is that important? And how would you see that particular role or work adding value?
I love that because sometimes people approach these types of conversations from a very self-serving perspective, which we get, right? You have your goals and your vision, but ultimately, the company really cares about the company and the bottom line.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. The company, of course, is nothing without its people, right? But at the end of the day, the company is in business to make money. So just be thoughtful as you're bringing and talking about things that are not in existence today. That could be a great way again to show your creativity, but just be thinking about how you might position the value for the company as well.
That's perfect. Yes. And so here's a little motivation for you folks. 80% of jobs are filled through networking and connections. So this is all the more reason to build those relationships. And then also, 69% of professionals with mentors feel more empowered in their career development. So it can give you so much encouragement, which translates into performance as well. All right. So this was great. Let's shift a little bit and talk about how do you stay marketable during times of change? So, according to the World Economic Forum, 23% of jobs are expected to change within the next 5 years due to technological advances like AI and automation. And so, knowing that there are major shifts happening due to technology, roles changing, roles being cut, new skill sets required, how is it that you can stay marketable, seen as that must have employee that has to remain through all of these changes?
It's such a good question, Nicole, because AI and digital transformation, along with change management, are at the core of discussions that I'm having as an HR professional in the industry daily.
Right. Yes.
So, when you think about how you can thrive through the change, a couple of things come to mind. And we may think it starts with performance, and that matters, but we talk more and more about how you show up versus what you show up doing. So when I
Mm.
say how, I'm talking about behaviors.
Say that
A
again.
good
I think people need to hear that.
we talk more today about how you show up
How you show
than
up.
what you show up doing. Your
Mm,
how matters just as much, if not more, than your
mhm.
what.
That's major.
And when we think about how agility and your ability to pivot through the change is extremely important. To your point, things are changing all of the time.
Mhm.
So, are you approaching change with optimism?
Mhm.
Are you asking questions or showing resistance?
Mhm.
How you can position yourself as an advocate or a champion through the change is important. That's the agility.
Mhm.
Collaboration sounds so simple, but it is important because I spend so much time talking with leaders about how to play nice in the sandbox. And I use that phrase because sometimes it feels like we are struggling
Oh
to
boy.
move from, the children in the sandbox to executives in the workplace. But your ability to connect with others, to
Mhm.
work in teams effectively, and to
Mhm.
be able to influence to get things done is important, even when you disagree. And oftentimes we may approach scenarios with different perspectives and ways of thinking, but we're all working toward the common goal. And when you can
Mhm.
show yourself as someone who does that well, it's
Mhm.
important.
Yeah,
And
'cause
then,
I would say people do not underestimate the soft skills. They are
yeah,
just as important as the technical skills, right? Mhm.
absolutely. One other thing I was going to reference was just leadership. And I mention this because you don't have to be a people leader to demonstrate leadership, but it's really being someone who has a point of view and can influence the work no matter what role you're in. So you can drive change by showing up to the meeting and sharing a new idea, or being someone to raise your hand to take on that new project. And even if you might be the individual to speak up courageously and note when something may not be going right and you need to
Mhm.
pivot, right? But you have a solution or an idea on how you can do it better, is so important. So, leadership and being proactive with how you operate through the change, so someone doesn't have to tell you what to do every step of the way, having
Yeah.
that point of view matters.
Mhm. And you just mentioned having courage, and it's funny, I've been in a few organizations that have gone through significant changes in such a short period of time. So it was one department change after another, more announcements. And what you saw through all of that was fear and people operating out of fear and making decisions out of fear that just really didn't position them well. And so, how do you deal with the mindset of change? Because that's a biggie.
I love what you said. The mindset is so important. And one thing that we need to remember is that we must focus on what we can control. You cannot control whether someone or an organization is going to make reductions, but you can control your attitude, how you show up and present yourself, and some of the things I mentioned earlier around how you work together with others. So, as you're thinking about the mindset, your ability to be resilient, we talk a lot about resilience in the workplace as well, and
Mhm.
continue persevering, right? And sometimes it's reflecting on what you've done before to know that you can do it again. And then I do think it's also important just to remember to set your boundaries and compartmentalize, right? This is one moment in time and the
Mhm.
work does not represent everything that you are. So you
Mhm.
do also have to find that balance as you're working through the change to reduce your fear. Do some of those things that you enjoy. Take your breaks, engage with your family, your friend, and your hobbies so that you're coming up and showing up with the mindset to be effective when you're at work. So that balance matters as well.
Oh, that was great. Thank you for that. One thing I recall, and I saw this often during that time when people were fearful, was when they were challenged to think a little differently than things have been done in the past, they would say, but that's not how we did it. That's not how we did it. And every time you would see that it was not helping them. In fact, it was putting them on the list of the folks to be let go. Like they might as well have written their resignation letter.
Oh my gosh, Nicole, you're so right. You have to embrace the change, right? And to your point, I do often hear people saying, we don't do it that way. That's not going to work. We tried that before. But
Mm,
you really want to present yourself as someone who is forward thinking again and who's just open to the new ideas and the possibilities of working. So you really optimism is something that we talk about as so important with the change mindset and just thinking about how you can thrive and move through the change versus what you can't do.
hmm Okay, so let's talk about something on a little happier note. Let's talk about salaries and trying to get higher salaries. So,
Yes.
here's another little tidbit. So, according to Pay Scale, 37% of workers have asked for a raise in 2023. And out of those 30, which sounds low to me actually, but out of those 37% of workers, 73% of those who asked received a pay increase. So, I mean, to me, I hear 3 out of 4 people got a chance of getting a higher pay, right? So, I mean, with those
If you
odds.
don't ask, absolutely. I mean, if you don't ask, you don't receive. So you have to be willing to have the courage to ask. And it's a tough topic, right? I navigate at all levels of the organization, and I know people can often feel uncomfortable to ask for money. So a couple of things to think about, right? One
Tell
is
us.
just
Yes.
to do an assessment on yourself and where you are in terms of your work performance. The reality is the organization's paying you a salary to do the work and the role that you're in today. So you really want to be demonstrating above and beyond what the expectations are if you're going to ask for more money. So think about, how are you performing and delivering against expectations? How do you perform against your peers? What kind of feedback have you received from your leaders and people around you to indicate that you are doing a good job?
Now, Ayana, let me stop you there because some people aren't objective, right? About
Mhm.
whether they're performing above or beyond. And so, is that literal? You look at your job description and what was asked of you, if you're going above that, or is it even above that times two? What tell us? How do we know if we are
It's
I
a good
should say,
question. If you're exceeding expectations.
well, exceeding expectations, but really positioning yourself in a way that someone's going to willingly give you that pay increase.
Yeah. So I think it's a great question. You want to be thinking about, if you have specific metrics in place, specific goals. Some jobs may have quantifiable goals or qualitative goals. How are you delivering against that? And hopefully you've had conversations with your leader that allows you to have some feedback on how you're performing.
True.
Typically in the area of work, you would be getting feedback or compliments on some area of your role. So in
Mm.
other words, it was just a way of saying, if you know you haven't been showing up on time or you've missed some deadlines, that's probably not the time to ask for the promotion,
Mhm.
but rather just have a little bit of an introspective moment to assess if you've been doing the work. And in most cases, you get that from feedback, but you can take a look at the expectations, your goals that you may have set for the year, and how you're performing against those goals. In addition to your self assessment, then you want to do a little bit of research. You can use resources like glassdoor.com to see what the salaries are. And then you know what ranges you may leverage. And then just be prepared to give specific examples when you're having a conversation with your leader so they understand what your achievements have been.
Yeah, I love that. A couple things. Like one trend that you see now is pay transparency. So for a lot of positions, they list the salary range, right? So you don't, if there is a position that you see posted that's comparable to the position that you have, you can see what the range is depending on region, industry, and some of those other things, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and that is, you actually mentioned region, which is important because a lot of jobs are based on geography. So you may see the national average, and so there might be a slight difference based on geography, but There are many organizations, I work for one of them, which shares a full range for positions when they are posted. So you can look within your own organization, or if your organization doesn't share that kind of information, there are external resources that you can leverage as well. Do a search on Google or one of the search engines, and you'll be able to find a range. But having that information arms you so then you don't sell yourself short when you think about what you're asking for as well. And I would
Mm.
encourage folks to think about total package. If you receive bonuses, if you receive equity, you never know. You ask, and you might be surprised that you ask for something. If the organization is not able to offer a particular salary, they might offer a bonus, or they might provide equity, stock in some cases. So your
Mm.
initial point is the most important one. You have to be willing to ask and to advocate for yourself to get what you want.
Right, and be informed about your ask. Right, that's what I hear you saying.
Absolutely. Yes.
Wonderful. So, are there any mistakes to avoid with salary negotiations? Well, you did talk about some in terms of underperformance, but in terms of the actual conversation itself, uh, I mean, do you bring examples? What went well? Is this a show and tell? Is are you doing a presentation, or is this, more casual
Yeah.
conversation?
So I think those are good questions. Some tips are I would have a dedicated time, right? So often we may not know how to approach the conversation. And if you're already feeling nervous, you want to make sure you and your leader have time set aside. So make sure it's in a one-to-one and not something that you're doing sort of in passing or in a meeting. You want to make sure that your leader is focused. And you should have notes. This it looks like you have a question.
No, I was gonna say that's a great point, because this is something that you want them to take seriously, and that you want to
Right.
demonstrate that you are serious about this and want them to take it seriously. So having that dedicated time, opposed to talking about it on the way to the water cooler, you know, like, why
Absolutely.
would
So
they
you
take that seriously?
exactly, right? And that gives them a quick beeline to say, "Oh, good talking to you. I have to head out to this meeting." So you want to have that time that will allow you to be prepared and your leader to be focused. And you also want to have the examples. You talked about bringing your notes. I think it's helpful to make sure that you have a list of accomplishments. This is your brag time. You want to be able to
Mhm.
showcase what you have done and have quantifiable results where possible, depending upon your role. How have you increased efficiency or decreased cost or reduced attrition? And I'm thinking of some things related to HR, but where you can have quantifiable metrics, that helps. And don't sell yourself short. Don't apologize. Don't. I think you focus on this meeting on really getting paid for the work that you're doing today. One other tip, organizations typically have pay and merit seasons. We're approaching ours right now. So that's usually time where the company sets aside money that they may be giving folks for the next year. And they have a pot there. So if you can have conversations before that occurs, so your manager is thinking about you, if there are extra dollars to be able to award for that promotion,
So
that's good timing.
is that the end of the company's fiscal year, or nearing the end of the company's fiscal year, or does it vary? What does that mean? Mm.
It may vary. Thank you for the clarification. So typically, it is during the end of the calendar year, but whenever performance review conversations are coming up, typically companies may offer the compensation shortly thereafter. So I
Mhm.
would say, if as an example, we do our reviews in November and December. So this would be a good time for me to plant a seed with my leader in terms of what I'm looking for, because we're going to be moving into decisions on pay in a couple of months. So that's just something to consider in terms of timing. It doesn't have to be at that time, but it helps that you be moving into a season where the company is thinking about giving more money to its employees.
Yeah. And so, I had always been a big proponent on check-ins and not waiting the annual evaluation at the end, right? Just checking in to see how things are going and making sure that it either my team are aligned, and then also who I reported to, we're aligned. And so maybe a strategy could be is just having those informal check-ins and demonstrating how you're performing well so that by the time they get to the evaluation, they already have you pinned as a star colleague.
Absolutely. And I know many organizations, in some cases, may have moved away from the annual review and are doing regular cycle performance discussions quarterly. We actually have a quarterly conversation at my organization that we do as well. But you can
Mm,
simply ask, right? Asking for feedback, asking for feedback not only from your leader, but from partners that you work with can be helpful. Some organizations also have recognition tools. So if you find that you've been recognized by others in the organization through those tools, bring that content into the conversation. It's always a good idea to keep a regular cadence so you know where you stand and if you need to be doing something different. The performance conversation, whether it be quarterly or annually, is also a good opportunity to express interest in higher level roles so that your manager might be able to speak to you about what you would need to do, what it looks like to be eligible for a promotion or increase.
So, what are your thoughts? Is it in poor taste to ask a colleague to recognize them through those tools?
Well, I think that's a yes. I would not ever go out and ask for recognition, but hopefully, if the company has, I love that question, Nicole. If the company has tools and you are receiving that recognition, then that lets you know that you're doing a good job. I absolutely agree. If you have to ask for it, then maybe we need to assess whether you need to be asking for the
So,
promotion or the, the
yeah,
increase.
pro tip, don't go and beg for someone to give you a recommendation. Don't do
Noted.
it. Don't do it. Okay. So, all right. And so, our bonus, you are going to tell us about some of the benefits that are common among a lot of organizations that people may be leaving money on the table or resources on the table and not taking advantage of them. And a lot of companies during this time, October, November, are reviewing their elections. And so we just want to give people some tips as they sign up for new benefits.
Absolutely. So, yeah, the organizations today offer a host of benefits that we can leverage. And so there are a couple. There are spending accounts, flexible spending accounts, and health savings accounts. You may have
Hmm.
heard FSA or HSA are accounts that allow you to contribute pre tax dollars into saving for health expenses. So you can go on and get more detail, but at its foundation, the flexible spending account or the FSA allows you to contribute. The one piece with that account is you have to use it or you lose it. So you want to
Hmm.
estimate what you might need to use in that year. The health savings account is similar, so you can contribute your pre-tax dollars and that can roll over year after year. So you want to just take some time to understand the options and determine what's best for you. Today, there are also a number of days that organizations will give for time off beyond your vacation time. So there could be volunteer days, so you can
Hmm.
go and support a charity or an organization of choice. Or even I've seen the emergence of wellness or mental health days that organizations are given, just recognizing the levels
Love
of
that.
stress that are
Hmm.
out there today.
Hmm. And
There
wait,
is also
let me do a selfish plug. So, if anyone, we have FinFest coming up in November, and if you still have those volunteer days, perhaps you can reach out to us and see if you want to support us during FinFest.
absolutely. I love
Mhm.
it, right? Just a great way to give back to the community on the company's time. And the companies also offer employee assistance programs, usually known as EAP.
Mm.
And this provides a host of services. So it could be services for financial advisory, counseling. If you're looking to manage your budget or looking for a financial advisor, those are resources that are offered. If you are looking for childcare or elder care resources, those are also available. And again, just related to the importance of mental health, some companies may even offer a free number of counseling sessions, 6 to 10 sessions that you can leverage just for support. So
Mm,
check out your employee assistance programs. They usually come with a number of resources that are valuable. And then just basic discounts, right? If you go to a gym or you have a certain phone provider, Verizon, you may
mm,
be able to get discounts and pay a lower price for your current service through your organization.
mhm. I know there's just so much. I think you saw a surge of the well-being and mental health services during COVID, right? So many of us needed support,
Absolutely.
and that seemed to be the beginning of a widespread movement from employers to be able to support their employees in that way. So I think that's just wonderful.
Absolutely. Stress and burnout are probably one of the biggest contributors to attrition or people leaving the workforce. So
Mm.
companies are realizing the importance of supporting mental health and just providing time off because we won't take it oftentimes. But you're saving for vacation, but if you have those additional days just to take a break or go to the doctor or whatever it is that you need to do, then you show up better for the company.
Ayana, this has been excellent, excellent, excellent. So, thank you so much for sharing your wealth of expertise with us in our community. And I know that so many people walked away with nuggets that they can apply tomorrow. And we just want to tell you
Wonderful.
again, don't do it. Don't say, we never done it like this before, or we did it like this and it didn't work. Do not do it. Just don't do it. Okay. So, but thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
It was my
So,
pleasure, Nicole.
so, everyone, that has been another wonderful episode of Ask the Expert. We look forward to seeing you next week, same time, same place. Also, please do take advantage of our free financial advisors who make themselves available to give you some support in developing your plans. You can look at the link below and go right away to schedule an appointment. This session has been powered by Prudential, our sponsors, and we're grateful for their support. And there you have it. See you next week. Bye.